Hello everyone. It's such a pleasure to see you all again on my channel today. In this video, we'll continue following the emotional and turbulent love story between CEO James and Diep. In the previous episode, James and Diep spent their days cleaning, shopping for furniture, and preparing their new home, a place they hoped would mark the beginning of a peaceful new chapter after all the turmoil they'd been through. However, on their way back, they unexpectedly encountered John, the man who had once harmed them and put their lives in danger, now recently released from prison. Instead of holding on to hatred, James and Diep chose to forgive him. They even let John stay in Diep's old house, as a gesture of kindness, giving him a chance to start over. But will their compassion bring true peace, or will it open the door to new and unforeseen troubles? Has John really changed, or is he still hiding a darker plan behind that calm demeanor? All will be revealed in today's episode, where secrets begin to unfold, and the love between James and Diep faces yet another test between trust and suspicion. Stay with me until the end of the video to find out what happens next. The rain was still falling, softly pattering on the faded thatched roof. In the early morning, a thin mist veiled the winding path that curved through the flooded rice fields. The croaks of frogs echoed from afar, blending with the whispering wind through the bamboo grove, wrapping the quiet countryside in a melancholic melody after long days of storms and floods. On the porch of a small wooden house nestled by the dike, Diep sat silently, her hands deftly peeling golden ears of corn. Raindrops clung to her brown blouse, her hair damp and sticking to her cheeks. Though her face showed traces of weariness, her eyes still carried a gentle, calm light, the gaze of a woman who had endured much hardship yet still harbored a quiet faith in life. Beside her, little me curled up on a low bamboo stool, clutching an old storybook wrapped in newspaper. Its pages had yellowed, the corners frayed and torn, yet to the child, it was a precious treasure. Outside, the drizzle fell in tiny drops, rippling through the puddles like shimmering circles of glass. A lazy tabby cat stretched, leaped onto the wooden bed, and curled up into sleep. Diep turned to her niece with a soft smile. "Sit here and rest, me. I'll go pick a bit more corn, then we'll take it to the market together." "Yes, ma'am," the girl replied in her sweet, innocent voice. She looked up at the sky, her dark eyes glimmering with worry, afraid the rain might pour again and wash away all the baskets of corn they had just gathered. For the past 3 days, the rain hadn't stopped. The dirt road from their house to the market was flooded and slippery, every step sinking into thick mud. The school was closed, and all the village children stayed home. To keep Nee from getting bored, Diep taught her letters and numbers, telling her old folktales passed down by her grandmother. Sometimes she used a piece of charcoal to write on a wooden board, while Nee followed along carefully, her lips moving with each sound. At noon, when the rain grew heavier, Diep lit a small fire to cook their simple meal. The flickering flame filled the house with the scent of burning wood and roasted corn. Nee peeled corn while reading aloud, syllable by syllable. C-O-D-E-P. Good girl. Diep laughed, gently patting her head, her eyes glowing with quiet joy. Outside, the rain drummed softly on the porch. Diep began telling the story of the 2 sisters and the starfruit tree. When she reached the part where the magic bird carried the younger sister high into the sky, Nee giggled, imagining herself soaring above vast fields of water, over the swaying palms glistening in the wind. Listening to the child's laughter, Diep felt her heart lighten. She remembered her own childhood, sitting by the same kind of fire, listening to her mother's stories, dreaming of a peaceful life untouched by storms. By late afternoon, the rain had eased. Pale light seeped through the thick clouds, casting a soft glow on Diep's calm yet determined face. She looked around the small wooden house, its walls darkened by time. On the bamboo bed, Nee had fallen asleep, still clutching her book, her hair falling across her forehead. The warmth from the hearth had painted her cheeks a rosy pink. Diep gently pulled a thin blanket over the girl and lingered beside her for a moment. Outside, the drizzle hadn't stopped completely. Each gust of wind made the wooden door creak softly. Diep lifted her gaze through the narrow gap, watching as the muddy path beyond, with its fading footprints, slowly blurred away under the new rain. At noon, the rain finally stopped. The last droplets clinging to the banana leaves fell to the ground with a soft tatch, like gentle rhythmic taps. The village road was still wet, its glossy surface reflecting the pale clouds above. The damp earth rose with the scent of half-dried straw, blending into that familiar fragrance of the countryside after rain. Diep put on a thin raincoat, carrying 2 heavy baskets of corn balanced across her shoulders. Beside her, little Nee held a small umbrella, playfully splashing her tiny plastic sandals through puddles, giggling with delight as muddy drops scattered around. The road from home to the market wasn't far, but after days of heavy rain, each step stuck stubbornly to the soggy ground. Even so, Diep walked calmly, long accustomed to hard work. Her eyes were fixed ahead, toward the village market's thatched roofs just visible beyond the bamboo grove, and a quiet joy welled up inside her. At last, she could bring her harvest to sell, to earn a little money for Nee's things. The market was livelier than usual that day. Voices called out, knives clattered against cutting boards, and the laughter of children mingled into a warm, familiar symphony of village life. Diep chose her usual spot near the vegetable stalls and neatly laid out the golden corn on a plastic sheet. The kernels gleamed in the weak sunlight, still glistening with traces of rain. Her voice was soft but earnest as she called out, "Fresh corn here. Picked this morning, tender and sweet, only 20,000 a kilo." Passers-by stopped to look at the kind-faced young woman and the polite little girl sitting quietly beside her. An old lady bought 2 kilos, smiling kindly as she said, "Such a gentle child, looks like she's used to working hard." Diep smiled and nodded in thanks. Nee also bowed politely, her bright eyes sparkling. Not long after, a familiar customer passed by. Seeing Diep, she stopped and exclaimed, "Oh! It's you, Diep. I haven't seen you at the market in ages. Your corn looks great, let me take the rest." A surprised joy spread across Diep's face, nearly bringing her to laughter. She thanked the woman repeatedly, her muddy hands fumbling as she counted the money, eyes shining with quiet gratitude. Sweat mixed with lingering raindrops on her forehead, yet her whole face glowed, as if touched by sunlight. When the last bundle of corn was sold, Diep turned to Nee and gently brushed the girl's hair. "All sold, good job. Let's stop by Mrs. Quynn's house, it's been so long since we last visited her." "Yes. And let's see Uncle James too," Nee chimed eagerly. Hearing James's name, Diep chuckled softly. Warmth and nostalgia stirred within her. James, the man who had helped her in her hardest days, now a dear friend to both her and Nee. She pulled out an old phone from her coat pocket and called Mrs. Quynh, James's mother. The familiar, affectionate voice answered from the other end. "Hello? Diep, is that you? It's been so long since I saw you too." "Yes, Auntie. Nee and I are nearby, we thought we'd stop in to visit." "Are you home?" "Of course. I'm cooking right now. Stay for dinner tonight, both of you." Hearing that, Nee's eyes lit up. She clutched Diep's hand tightly and whispered excitedly, "Please, let's stay for dinner. I miss Uncle James so much." Diep nodded with a gentle smile, then looked out toward the distance. The sun was peeking through the thinning clouds, casting faint golden rays over the damp road. From somewhere afar, the church bells chimed, blending with the soft rustle of wine through the palm trees, a quiet herald of an evening's peace. Hand in hand, the two walked on. Their small shadows stretched long across the wet village road, leading toward the house where warmth and affection awaited. Evening descended slowly. The sky remained a thick shade of gray, heavy clouds drifting lazily over the hilltops, carrying a damp chill that crept into every doorway, every patch of earth and yard. The air hung still, soaked with the scent of wet soil and the faint hiss of wind slipping through the line of palm trees in front of the house. Amid that misty dusk, Mrs. Quinn's wooden house stood out like a small beacon of warmth. Wisps of kitchen smoke curled upward, lazily twisting above the thatched roof, carrying with them the gentle aroma of freshly cooked rice and caramelized fish. The crackle of burning firewood mingled with the rhythmic chop of a knife on a bamboo board, each sound weaving together into a melody of evening peace, the familiar song of a woman busy preparing a family meal. Diep stood by the stove, her coarse apron stained with a few splashes of broth. One hand stirred the pot of soup while the other brushed sweat from her brow. The firelight flickered across her face, illuminating its soft features. A few strands of hair stuck to her damp neck, and beads of sweat slid slowly down before disappearing into the tousled locks behind her ear. The scent of golden fried shallots and pepper filled the air, stinging her eyes slightly, yet her smile carried quiet joy, the kind that comes from standing in a warm kitchen, surrounded by the voices of loved ones. "I've been so busy lately, I just finished moving into the new house," Diep said, her voice tinged with fatigue but still gentle. "I couldn't have managed it without you and James helping." Mrs. Quinn paused from slicing vegetables. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She looked up, her kind eyes full of warmth. "Oh, think nothing of it, dear. Helping each other is what family's for. I'm just glad you two finally have a new home." She hesitated, her voice lowering with quiet empathy. "I know you've been through a lot these past years, raising little me all on your own. Now, seeing you and James taking care of each other, that makes me truly happy." Her smile was soft like sunlight, her eyes clouded with age but glowing with the gentle warmth of someone who's lived and understood much. The steady rhythm of her knife resumed, blending with the fragrance of the sautéed shallots and the comforting heat of the kitchen. In the living room, Nee sat cross-legged in front of an old television. The screen flickered weakly, showing a children's program that sometimes faded into static before clearing up again. The little girl hugged a worn teddy bear, her wide eyes fixed on the screen, though from time to time, she glanced toward the kitchen, listening to the voices of the two women. "Auntie Diep," Nee called softly, her voice sweet as honey, "I think Uncle James must be really hungry by now." Diep chuckled, lifting her eyes toward the window, where the fading light of dusk stretched a thin orange line along the horizon. "We'll eat first, sweetheart. I'll save some for him when he gets back." "Okay," Nee replied, turning her gaze back to the television, her small feet swinging lightly to the rhythm of the cheerful tune. Outside, the wind rustled through the grapefruit trees behind the house. The smoke from the kitchen mingled with the thin evening mist, forming a hazy curtain before the porch. The smell of burning wood mixed with the aroma of rice, pepper, and sizzling fish sauce, filling the air with an aching sense of home. Then, suddenly, Diep paused. She tilted her head, her brow furrowing slightly, as if she had just heard something unusual. Amid the familiar household sounds, there came a faint rustle, followed by a soft crack, like someone stepping on a dry twig outside. She lifted her head and frowned. The air grew unnaturally still. The fire flickered uncertainly, casting her elongated shadow against the wooden wall. Beyond the porch, the rain had stopped, yet the ground was still slick with water. A gust of wind swept through, making the door creak open with a long, drawn-out cat that echoed through the small kitchen. Diep stepped quietly onto the porch. The wind brushed past her, cold and carrying the raw scent of wet earth. The narrow path before the house was empty, save for a few drops dripping from the eaves into an overturned basin, each fall landing with a clear, lonely ting, ting. Farther away, the shadow of the grapefruit tree swayed gently, its silhouette trembling across the bamboo fence. She stood still for a few moments, an indescribable feeling rising inside her, as though unseen eyes were watching from somewhere within the darkness, silent yet persistent. A familiar voice broke the silence behind her, pulling her back to reality. "Diep, dear, could you grab me that bowl from the shelf?" "Yes, right away," she replied, turning quickly toward the kitchen, trying to shake off the unease that had crept into her chest. The sounds of conversation soon returned, warm, rhythmic, mingling with the faint patter of leftover rain on the porch roof. But somewhere out there, within the shadowed air of the fading evening, too deep still felt it, that subtle tension, that quiet whisper of foreboding, as if the peace surrounding this wooden house was only fleeting, fragile, and a colder wind was waiting just beyond the horizon. Night had fallen completely. The sky hung low and heavy, pressing down like a dark, suffocating dome. Raindrops began to fall thick and fast, drumming against the old tiled roof in an endless lop-bop rhythm. Outside the porch, streams of water poured steadily from the gutter, spilling into the muddy yard and merging with the puddles below. A biting chill crept in through every crack in the wooden walls, carrying with it the earthy, musky scent of damp soil and wet wood. Inside, a small oil lamp flickered on the dining table, casting a pale golden glow that trembled each time a gust of wind slipped through the shutters. Shadows wavered across the wooden walls, long and ghost-like, moving with every flicker of the flame. On the stove, the soup had cooled, and the thin wisp of smoke rising from the pot dissolved quietly into the dim corners of the kitchen. Mrs. Quynh sat by the table, clutching her phone, eyes fixed anxiously on the glowing screen. She had been calling James over and over, but all she heard was the long, hollow beep of an unanswered line. Each time it happened, her heart tightened with worry. "I wonder if the road's collapsed," she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. "He's not picking up at all. The radio said it's pouring hard near the mountain pass. I'm afraid there might have been an accident." Too Deep sat beside her, hands gripping her own phone tightly, her thumb tracing its edge unconsciously. The lamplight fell softly across her face, catching in her dark eyes, eyes that now shimmered with an unmistakable unease. Beside her, Little Me huddled close, wide eyes staring toward the window, where the rain blurred everything beyond the glass into a curtain of white. The rain grew louder, pounding relentlessly. The roof trembled faintly, water splashed against the porch, scattering in bursts. Mrs. Quynh stood and latched the shutters, sighing as she pushed them closed. "It's probably just the storm messing with the signal. Let's hope he's found somewhere safe to wait it out." Silence settled heavily inside the house. Only the ticking of the wall clock broke the stillness, steady, faint, mingled with the fierce drumming of rain on the roof. The oil lamp flickered weakly, its smoke curling thin and gray, tinged with the faint smell of something burning. Then, suddenly, Diep's phone rang. The soft chime shattered the stillness, making all three women jump. She snatched it up quickly, pressing it to her ear. The signal was weak, a chorus of static and crackling filled the line. Through it came James's voice, distant, strained, and broken by interference. "Diep, it's me. The road's collapsed. I can't get through. I'll have to wait for the crews to clear it before I can come back. Are you all right? Is anyone with you?" Diep's voice trembled as her heartbeat quickened. "I'm fine, don't worry. Stay there with Aunt Quynh and me, all right? It's pouring out here. Don't try to come back, you hear me?" Behind his words, she could hear the howling wind, the pounding rain against the car windows, the unmistakable sounds of a storm raging in the distance. Okay, please be careful, Diep whispered, staring into the rain-soaked darkness outside. Her voice quavered, but she tried to sound calm. The line cut off. The screen went black. For a moment, all sounds seemed to vanish, as if the world itself had paused. Then, slowly, the endless rhythm of the rain returned, cold and merciless. Mrs. Quynh exhaled shakily, lowering herself back into her chair, a hand pressed against her chest. Thank goodness, at least he's safe for now. But this weather, it frightens me. Diep said nothing. Her eyes remained fixed on the rain-streaked window. A flash of lightning suddenly lit up the yard outside, turning everything silver for an instant, the drenched ground, the swaying palms, the trembling fence. And just for a heartbeat, she thought she saw it, a shadow, slipping past the front gate. Quick, indistinct, almost like a trick of the light. But it was there. A deafening clap of thunder followed, shaking the roof. Nee screamed softly and burrowed into her arms. Auntie, I'm scared. Diep wrapped the child close, stroking her back gently. It's all right, sweetheart. Just thunder. It'll pass soon. Mrs. Quynh added more oil to the lamp, its flame flaring brighter and casting the room in warm light again. Yet even in that calm glow, too Diep couldn't shake the chill rising in her chest, a quiet dread, cold and insistent. For deep within the storm, beyond the curtain of rain, it felt as though the night was hiding something. Something waiting. The rain outside the porch fell in a steady rhythm, each drop striking the old tiled roof and breaking into a slow, somber melody, one that felt both melancholic and familiar. Inside the small wooden house, the warm glow of the oil lamp cast a soft yellow light over familiar faces, its flame shimmering through the haze of steam rising from the freshly cooked rice. Heat filled the kitchen, mingling with the aroma of caramelized fish, the fragrance of mixed vegetable soup, and the pungent smoke of burning firewood, all blending into that simple, comforting scent of a countryside meal, enough to make one forget the cold pressing against the walls outside. The family gathered around a small wooden table, worn smooth by years of use, the oil lamp's light glinting faintly across its surface. In the center sat a pot of rice, surrounded by modest dishes, braised fish, a bowl of soup, a plate of golden fried eggs, and freshly boiled corn still glistening from its husks. Little Nee sat in the middle, her round cheeks glowing pink from the heat of the stove. She carefully picked up a piece of corn, took a bite, and her eyes lit up. "It's so sweet, Auntie." Her innocent words lifted the air in the room. Too Diep laughed softly, watching her, and spooned more rice into the girl's bowl. Mrs. Quynh chuckled too, her wrinkled eyes crinkling with warmth as she placed a piece of fish into Nee's bowl, her voice tender. "Eat more, sweetheart. It's cold, you'll need your strength for school tomorrow." "Yes, ma'am," Nee replied brightly, her eyes curving into little crescents. With rice still on her lips, she mumbled shyly, "Auntie's braised fish is the best. Way tastier than the one at the market." Laughter filled the small kitchen. The sound mingled with the patter of rain outside, soft, simple, yet deeply comforting. It was the kind of peace that felt rare after days of storms, the kind that made the world, for a moment, seem still again. Diep lowered her gaze, slowly picking at her food, her voice dropping slightly. "I'm so grateful to you and James. Without you both, I don't know how Nee and I would have managed." Her voice trembled faintly, but the sincerity was unmistakable. The lamp's flame flickered, reflecting in her moist eyes. In her heart, she could see James's face, the man who had reached out to help when everything seemed lost. Mrs. Quynh looked at the young woman sitting across from her, her chest tightening with compassion. She set her chopsticks down and smiled gently. "Think nothing of it, dear. Everyone has their hardships. Seeing you and Nee safe and happy, that's all I need." Her eyes drifted toward the misted window, where raindrops kept falling in soft, rhythmic beats. Her tone grew quieter, touched with reflection. "James has always been kind-hearted, but he carries a heavy soul. Ever since he met you and me, he's changed, more thoughtful, more open. I think that's fate." At those words, Diep froze for a moment. A strange, tender ache welled in her chest, warm, yet tight. She didn't reply, only smiled faintly as she placed more vegetables into Nee's bowl, a small, quiet smile filled with gratitude and emotion. Outside, the wind whistled through the porch. The rain thickened, pounding harder against the metal roof. For an instant, lightning flared in the distance, illuminating the window and casting fleeting shadows across the wooden walls. Mrs. Quynh glanced outside and murmured, "With rain like this, the road will be blocked for a while. I hope James has eaten something." Diep looked up, her eyes drifting toward the window again, her heart sinking slightly. Nee kept eating cheerfully, unaware that outside, the night rain was stretching longer and darker than usual, and somewhere out there, along those landslide-ridden roads, someone was still trying to find his way home. Most of the lights in the wooden house had gone out, leaving only a small oil lamp flickering weakly on the dining table. Its pale yellow glow spilled through the window frame, stretching out onto the wet porch before dissolving into the misty rain. The house was wrapped in darkness and silence, with only the faint warmth of the dying fire lingering in the air. Mrs. Quynh was still awake. She sat by the table, hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed on the pitch-black sky outside. The phone lay in front of her, the screen lighting up, then fading again, no calls, no messages. Her voice, hoarse with worry, broke the silence. "I just hope James makes it home safely." Outside, the wind howled through the line of palms, sweeping raindrops against the window. The downpour on the old tiled roof sounded almost like hurried footsteps rushing across the yard, making the still night feel colder, more uneasy. On the wooden cot near the kitchen, Diep leaned against the wall, little Nee fast asleep on her shoulder. The child's breathing was calm, her tiny hand still gripping the corner of Diep's sleeve, as if afraid to let go. Diep gently brushed the damp strands of hair from Nee's forehead. Her gaze was distant, filled with unspoken fear and quiet endurance. The oil lamp flickered, its light revealing a young but weary face, pale, thinner from long days of storms and sleepless nights. Yet behind that exhaustion glimmered something steady and strong, determination, faith, and a fragile hope that somehow, everything would be all right. Mrs. Quynh rose, shutting the window against the wind, then placed a comforting hand on Diep's shoulder. Her voice was low, warm, and tinged with sorrow. "You should rest, dear. It's late. James is probably somewhere safe, waiting for the rain to pass." Diep nodded faintly, though her eyes remained fixed on the darkness beyond. Outside, the storm roared on, rain cascading like sheets of silver, wind swirling violently through the swaying bamboo grove. A sudden flash of lightning split the sky, flooding the room with blinding white. For a brief second, Diep thought she saw it, a shadow, faint and still, standing near the gate, half lost in the curtain of rain. Her breath caught. She blinked, but when her eyes refocused, there was nothing, only emptiness and the long, eerie howl of wind rolling over the hills. Her heart pounded. She pulled me closer, tucking the thin blanket around the child's shoulders, forcing herself to stay calm as unease crept up her spine. Thunder rumbled in the distance, echoing off the mountains, deep, drawn out, almost like a warning whispered through the storm. Inside that small wooden house, surrounded by the fury of rain and wind, the warmth of their hearts still burned like the lone oil lamp, faint but steadfast, refusing to yield to the darkness outside. Meanwhile, far away on a flooded mountain road, James was still driving through the storm. His headlights cut through the rain, scattering over walls of mist, lonely beacons of light in the endless night. The rain showed no sign of stopping. Would he make it home before the flood rose? Or was this only the beginning, the quiet prelude to another storm waiting just beyond the horizon? Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover what awaits them in this long, storm-ridden night.